Hello, dear viewers. Today I'm going to be talking about India and how it will be affected by the expansion of BRICS. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome to Global Nationalism. I am a global nationalist. I support nationalism in my country, India, and in all countries around the globe. Today I'm going to be talking about Indian nationalism with respect to current events. The topic for today is the expansion of the organization BRICS and how it will benefit and how it will hurt India. And why do I think it will overall be good for India? It's happened last month in Johannesburg, South Africa, which had where BRICS countries decided to welcome six other countries into the organization. They will join BRICS beginning in January next year, first January 1st, and it will have a big impact for India and the rest of the world. And I'm excited to talk about it. Let's get started. India and BRICS's expansion. The BRICS have included Iran, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, Argentina, and Egypt. I think that this is a good decision to bring them in, and I'll explain why. First, I'll talk about each India and its relation with each of these countries, starting with Iran. Trade between India and Iran is worth $1.91 billion in 2022. This is significant and shows that there is uh, so far a base of good base for trade, but there's a much more potential for it to grow, and it should be growing. Unfortunately, because India has Iran has been sanctioned by the United States and other Western countries, not just the United States. Uh, India cannot buy oil from them, and so trade has suffered. But their trade still continues. India exports to Iran rice, tea, electrical machinery, man made staple fibers, jewelry, and India imports from Iran dry fruits, chemicals, glassware. India is building one part of the Chabahar port for Iran. This shows that beyond oil, there's a lot of other things that India and Iran are trading. And so having them in BRICS can be beneficial because it could increase trade between India and Iran, and it could also help India in finishing the construction of the Jabhar port, getting it fully activated for India to send sell goods there, and that can travel from Iran to other Central Asian countries and eventually to Russia, maybe. India and Saudi Arabia relations. Saudi Arabia is India's fourth largest trading partner, and in 2021 to 22, the trade was $44 billion. 18% of India's crude oil imports are from Saudi. Indian companies have invested $2 billion in Saudi, and Saudi has invested $3.3 billion in India. This shows that uh, Saudi Arabia is a very important country for India, financially and economically speaking, that the economic ties are very strong, especially with trade being in the double billions. That's incredible. And Saudi Arabia being India's fourth largest trading partner, this will just help India. Well, and with Saudi Arabia being part of BRICS, especially with India buying crude oil, India will be able to pay for the oil in rupees, and Saudi Arabia will be able to pay their imports from India in their own local currency and without using the dollar. So this will all be good. And we can have even more investments, more deep ties between each other. India and UAE relations. The UAE is India's third largest trading partner, so one up above Saudi Arabia. Trade between UAE and India is $84 billion. India exports to UAE petroleum products, meat and cereals, precious metals, jewelry. India imports from the UAE are petroleum products, chemicals, wood, and jewelry. This shows that the trade is diverse and it's mainly India's exporting um, things that act like which are important things that can help UAE in industrially and which are India's industries where India is has expertise in, such as jewelry and cereals, and the fact that India imports from the UAE petroleum and exports petroleum products to it shows that India has abilities to refine petroleum into petroleum products, and also that India depends on UAE for chemicals, wood, and also jewelry in return. So a lot of the things being traded are being traded between each other. It's not like one side doesn't have anything that the other does. It's a interdependent trade relationship, which is very healthy. India and Argentina relations. Trade between Argentina and India reached $6.4 billion in 2022. India's exports to Argentina were worth $1.84 billion. India's imports from Argentina were worth $4.55 billion. India is Argentina's fourth largest trading partner. This this means that India and Argentina have more trade between each other than India and Iran, which shows that uh, the depth, the strength of their ties, and the fact that India's importing from Argentina shows that this is trade relationship is beneficial for Argentina, but the deficit is not too high. It's only about uh, $3 to $4 billion, which is manageable. And so it's a good trade relationship. And India is Argentina's fourth largest trading partner. Now that Argentina is part of BRICS, India could become the second largest trading partner. I don't think it can surpass China anytime soon, but second is definitely a possibility. India and Egypt relations. Trade between India and Egypt reached $7.26 billion in 2021 to 22. India's exports to Egypt were worth $3.74 billion. India's imports from Egypt were worth $3.52 billion. India's exports include buffalo meat, iron and steel, engineering products, and cotton yarn. India's imports include petroleum slash mineral oil, fertilizers, inorganic chemicals, and cotton. And yeah, this is shows that India and Egypt have pretty much an equal partnership with their exports and imports from and to each other being almost equivalent in their worth. And also, their what they're trading with each other is quite diversified. Uh, in although there is some similarities, such as India exports to Egypt cotton yarn and imports cotton itself. Having Egypt in BRICS will just mean that India will be able to uh, export even more of its goods and import more from Egypt. India and Ethiopia relations. India and Ethiopia's trade was $2.8 billion in 2022. India's exports to Ethiopia are iron and steel products, machinery, pharmaceuticals, etc. India's imports from Ethiopia are pulses, precious stones, seeds, and spices. India is among the top three investors in Ethiopia. India's this shows that India's able to make use of Ethiopia's market by selling heavy industrial products such as iron and steel and machinery, and India's uh, large and highly developed pharmaceutical industry has found a market in Ethiopia, which is good. This will only increase with Ethiopia being part of BRICS. India's imports from Ethiopia are pulses, precious stones, seeds, and spices. So this is interesting because India has plenty of pulses, seeds, and spices, and so this shows that uh, with Ethiopia becoming part of BRICS, India can import more of these goods from Ethiopia, and India can increase its investments in Ethiopia. Now, the most important part of this is to see how oil and petroleum products, energy itself, is going to affect BRICS and compare it to the OECD nations. Energy percentage of world total, category BRICS OECD. Crude oil reserves for BRICS are 41%. For OECD, they're 15%. Oil production is 43% for BRICS and 31% for OECD. Oil consumption is 35% for BRICS and 46% for OECD. Natural gas reserves are 50% for BRICS and 11% for OECD. Gas production is 36% for BRICS and 39% for OECD. Gas consumption is 36% for BRICS and 46% for OECD. So, in some of these areas, then enlarged BRICS will have an advantage over OECD, and some OECD will maintain its advantage. But even then, in areas where uh, BRICS has a disadvantage, its disadvantage is not too great, and it can improve. So I think this is great for India that all these countries have trade with India in the billions of dollars, and this trade can improve India's an energy consumption country, and it can really tap into these the oil industries of these countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Iran, and benefit from them without being dependent on the US dollar. So this is very exciting. These countries will give India more influence in the Middle East, in Africa, and South America, and India's investments into these countries will improve and increase, and they will in turn invest into India. India's economy is just going to benefit from this. And a lot of people fear that, a lot of analysts fear that this the countries that have been brought in are going to help China over India. I disagree. I think India, by working with these countries in BRICS, is going to become more economically integrated in them, especially since India's economy is going to grow, and this will also make these countries wary to go against India in favor of China, and will be more likely to balance their relations with both of us. And by if BRICS becomes a wealthy organization, economically prosperous, then India and China will both benefit from each other from this, and China might reconsider its attitude towards India and become less hostile. So far, while working in BRICS, India and China have got along. They've not been hostile to each other. They've allowed the organization to work. The new development bank was created, and even though China was its highest lender, has put in the most money into it. India, China, India, and Russia are at the second highest, and Brazil and South Africa are the lowest. So India and Russia are able to maintain balance together with China to prevent China from overpowering the group. And I think that will continue with BRICS being expanded. I think it'll be actually harder for China to dominate in a larger, more uh, amorphous group than a smaller, more cohesive group. I'm going to miss the days when BRICS was just these five countries, but I'm excited for the future as well. And that's all I wanted to say. I hope you enjoyed that video. Please share your thoughts in the comment section. If you want to see other videos about Indian nationalism with respect to current events, click on this playlist. If you want to see my previous video, click on this video. If you want to see the sources I used for this video, click the links in the description below. Thank you for watching. Vande Mataram.